Hello and welcome. We have quite a bit more setup to do here, so let's get started on it right away. Now that we have two different folders, a front end and our server, let's open up two different terminals. And in the first terminal, just type yarn to get that one started, and then cd into front end, and just type yarn there as well. Now we've populated both of the npm modules. With that done, let's make sure everything is working with yarn run dev in the main folder where server is. And it is working and looking exactly how we left it. Let's make sure our server ran 2, running project at port 5000, perfect. Now let's get out of this process and install some more packages. So yarn add, and we have quite a few packages to put in. We're going to need bcrypt soon, not right now, but let's get it anyway. We'll need cookie-parser, just like we had body parser before. This parses cookies. We're going to need .env, keep track of our variables. That's .env, D-O-T-E-N-V, just because it's spread to 2 different lines there. We're going to have to use our JSON web token. So install that package as well. We'll need Mongo, we'll need Mongoose, and we'll also bring in validator. So just bring those all into the project. With that added, we are going to get our server connected to our database, which will be MongoDB, the most popular database. So we're going to use this, so just go ahead and sign in or try for free. While you're in here, you could go up to where I have video for auth and make yourself a new project, and I will walk through it as well. Ecom project, go to next. I'm not going to invite anyone except myself. Create that project. Now just build yourself a cluster. When you go to build a cluster, you could type in an organization, the name of the project, your preferred language, which should be JavaScript, and then continue. And what you want is a shared cluster, the free one. So just grab that one, do it on AWS, and whichever is free to you, just go ahead, click it, and click Create Cluster, and you're good to go. This takes a moment, so I'm going to use one of the clusters I already have. So I'll just get out of here, and instead of being in ecom, let me just move over to video for auth. Now there's 2 connections I want to make after this is set up. First, I want you to get Compass. So go ahead and try it for free, or sign in and get the free version and get it on to your computer. And now if I put up Compass, MongoDB Compass, we could see that it comes up like this. I am logged into something, so let me log out of this one. I'll disconnect. And what it needs is a string here. So this is your connection string, and we could get our connection string from our cluster. Go to connect, and go to connect to MongoDB Compass, copy it, and then we will paste it in right here. So edit, and that's fine. I'm going to change these credentials, obviously. And then you'd paste it in here. And what I had is a user that I made for it named demoUser2. I gave him a password of demoUser2. And at the end of it, they have this that says test here. You could change this to something else as well. I'll change it to ecom, and we'll connect. And here we are, you are connected to your database. Now I'm going to drop a few things from this database because this is something I used from a different project. So I'll drop that, and I'll also go to the video for auth, I'll drop that. And this is good to see because you might have to do this if you make some users and you did it improperly and you want to go ahead and start over. This is how you drop any of your databases right from MongoDB Compass without any code at all, which is really nice of them. So we do have our connection string. Let me close this up, and we'll connect again. You'll see that there's a different for connect your application, but it's the same thing. You just have to use your connection string again. So we'll copy that in there. We'll head over to our code, and now we're going to use our .env package. So that's pretty easy to get started on. We just say .env, and we made a .env file. The first thing we'll set in here is the node environment. So node env I'm going to set equal to dev for development. So we'll start with our node env development, and now we'll do our database. Set that equal to the string that we got, that connection string. The DB name I will change to ecom for our e-commerce, and I know I used demo user 2 in both places, so demo user 2 is also the password. So there we are, we're set up with our database environmental variable. This is also a great place to set our port. We did it kind of hard-coded, and I'd rather set it here. So port 5000 in our end file. And now let's head to our server and get that in there. So right above the app, I'm going to require .env, and after that, .config, and invoke that. So now that's configured, and we can have access to .env variables. We're also going to bring in Mongoose, so const Mongoose, and we just put this into our packet. We just got this package into our project. This will be Mongoose require, and inside of there, Mongoose. Now here's how we use .env. We'll do it with the port first. So .env will either be process.env.port, all capitals like we typed it, or it'll be 5000. So it'll either be the port that we typed in there or 5000. This is how we access .env variables. So let's set up our Mongoose now that we're ready to go. The first thing we want is a const called db for database and process.env.database. Now we could use this inside of our mongoose.connect. And inside of the connect, get that database. That's the first thing. And then we're going to set some options here. And you have to set these options, otherwise you get a bunch of flags, a bunch of red flags every time you start things up. So we're going to use the new URL parser. Just set that to true. We're also going to use create index in case you want to make any indexes. Set that to true as well. And then use unified topology. That will also be true. And this will be something we don't do async await style, but .then style. So .then, after that happens, we'll have a function, an anonymous function pointing to console.log connected to database. Let's save that up and see if we can connect to our database now. So we'll just yarn run dev. And we were connected. I saw it just for a split second. Let me go back up to it. Server running on port 5000, connected to database. So we now can communicate with our MongoDB database. Now let's work a little bit with Mongoose and MongoDB. I want to make a user schema. So we're going to define what a user looks like in our database. So outside here, we'll make a folder called schemas. Inside of schemas, we'll make a file called user.js. Now inside user.js, we'll get a Mongoose in here. So const mongoose will equal require mongoose. We'll also do some validation. So const validator will require validator. And now Mongoose has some cool functions attached to it. So const user schema. We create it by saying new mongoose. Make sure that's an equal sign and not a negative. Okay, new mongoose dot schema with a capital. That's important there. And inside of there, we define what a user is. A user is going to have an email. The type will be a string. And let's do a few more. So the next thing we'll do is a password. So a user will have a password. And the type will also be a string. And the user will also have a clearance level. So if someone is, say, an admin or something like that, and we'll set that real quick now, the type will also just be a string. So a user will have an email, a password, and a clearance. That's all we're saying right now. And after all of this, we're just going to write const user, capital, is going to equal mongoose.model. So we're defining the model now. And user as a capital, and then comma 2 user schema. So that's what we're saying when we type user. Then let's export that. So module.exports, and that will equal user, the capital one that's exporting the whole schema. Well, it's begun to rain by me quite a bit. I don't know if it's coming through on the microphone, but we're going to power through this. So in email, it's not only going to be a string, it's going to be a unique string. We don't want other people to have the same email, and we don't want duplicate emails in there. We're going to say lowercase, true as well. So it's always lowercase, it gets moved down to lowercase. Next, we'll say required. And required is definitely true, but put it in an array. We'll say true first, and then after that, we give the error message that we want. Email is invalid. Now, one final thing while we're talking about validation, we'll comma to it. While we're talking about validation, we're going to write validate. And in there, the same type of thing. Validator dot is email. And then comma to the message in case it's not an email. Email is invalid. Now our password is going to have a select feature on it. Now when we put select false, that means that the password won't be returned from the database at any point unless we want to, unless we select it. So at any point that we pass the user information, the password will not be sent with it. We want to do that, that's important there. And finally, in clearance, we're going to have enumerated values. So enum, and inside of there, we're going to make an object, and the object will have values. The values will be an array of values. We'll have user, comma 2 instructor, and then comma 2 admin. So those are our 3 possible clearance levels. Then we'll also have a message in case it's not one of these enumerated values, and that message will be the clearance value is invalid. Now outside of the enum here, we'll just comma to default, and that will say user. So if anyone makes an account, their account will be a user account unless we otherwise say so. Save this up. You just made your first schema, and it's a working one. Let's prove it by going to our server and finishing up this function, sign up, into something that actually functions and actually works. So head to the top and bring in our user schema. So const user will equal require, and then we just navigate to it. It's on the same level in schemas under user. So now we have our user schema and we can communicate with our database. Let's get started. Now, instead of just taking the email and password and returning the email, password, and a message with it, we're going to do quite a bit more. We do need the email and the password. Now, after that, we're going to make a const called new user, and it'll be the result of this function. Await user, so that's what we just made, dot create. And that is a function or a method that we could use on user. So user.create, and we're going to pass it an email and a password. After that, we want to console.log that new user, and let's return that new user. So we'll get rid of everything that's here, and it'll just say user new user, and that's what we'll be returning now. If we get an error, we could still run the same error. So save that up, and let's make our first sign in. So we'll go to login. I will have a user called first user at user.com and a password of password. Let's submit that, and this will sign us up. Now I will take a look at the sign up, make sure it came back properly. It did. We have an object coming back. The object should have data in it, and data has user. The user has a clearance level, an email, and a password. That's good news, so let's make sure it's in here as well. So in here, we'll just go up to this right here. This is our MongoDB compass. So if you're in Compass, you go click that refresh, and now my ecom comes up. Inside of ecom, we have users, and we have our first user. Now, there are problems with this. We don't want a password in our database looking like that. We need to hash them. There's a lot more to do, really, about authentication. So just follow me to that next video, and we'll do more of it. Great job, and keep coding.